Since when is democracy a good thing? I'm Wheelgun Dan. Thank you for being here with me today. Visit wheelgundan.com for all my latest activities and offerings. That's the question. Since when is democracy a good thing? You hear people talk about democracy all the time. Democracy is likened to freedom and all that is good in America and all the founding principles of America for freedom and liberty and all of that. And everyone associates that with democracy. But is that really the case? Let's talk about what democracy is compared to what other form of government we might actually be mistaking for democracy. So let me look at the Old West teleprompter here, low technology. A fellow named James Madison said, "One of the worst forms of government is a pure democracy, that is, one in which the citizens enact and administer the laws directly. Such a government is helpless against the mischiefs of faction." James Madison is quoted as saying that in the Federalist Papers of 1787. Only a few years before the Birdcage Theater was built. How about that? Just a few years before they shoot out at the OK Corral. Thomas Paine said it very well, I think, where he said, "A democracy is the vilest form of government there is." So these are a couple of people who were regarded as being among the founders of our country, the United States. So if democracy is such a good thing, why did some of these founders believe that democracy is such a vile and contemptible thing? So this is a good question. So what I'll be explaining to you now is, in my own ways, I'm going to try to explain to you the difference between a democracy and what we will call today a constitutional republic. So strap in. So a constitutional republic, first of all, the United States is not a democracy. It is a republic. Perhaps it could be argued that one of the reasons there are so many people in the United States that want to get rid of the stating of the Pledge of Allegiance in school is because in the Pledge of Allegiance, it reminds us all that the United States is a republic. What is a republic? Well, basically, a republic is a form of government where they have a thing called a constitution, the Constitution being a document that spells out the basic most laws of the land, the highest level of law of the land. And a republic is unique in that the government must obey the law of the land the same as the people who live in the country must also obey the law of the land. Now, okay, so how is that different than a democracy? Well, a democracy is where basically, in a very simplistic way of explaining it, all the people, everybody, they get together, they vote for a particular thing of how they want the law to be, and then if there's a unanimous consensus, the vote, then the law changes, and then the new law takes effect. Now, it does not matter in such a case whether the law is a good law or a bad law. Meaning, for instance, let's say that everybody gets together and they have a vote and they want to make it perfectly legal to beat up old people, okay? Well, I'm using a silly example in order to help communicate this. So in a democracy, if everybody gets together and they all vote and say it's okay to beat up old people, then it becomes the law, and then what you have is a system of government that is really, really unfair, and bad things happen as a result of it. So Remember, the word legal only means that it is in accordance with the law. There was a guy in Germany in the 1930s, Adolf Hitler, who his party, his political party, them Nazis, went and made and enacted some laws that were very, very bad laws. They did not recognize the individual rights of the people living in there, and they did some horrible, horrible things. You can research that on your own. I'm not trying to get into that, but the point being is that just because you get together and vote for something to make a law a certain way doesn't mean that that law is automatically going to be good and wholesome. And the other problem with that is it offers no stability for your system of government, in that the people should know what the law is and that everybody follows the law. The people and the government, everybody knows what the law is, and then you have great stability in your country. But if the laws are constantly changing because everybody decides this week, well, it's okay to beat up old people, let's make a law saying it's okay to do that. And then next week, now it's illegal again to beat up old people. And then the week after that, you enact another law because everybody keeps taking these votes. You have no stability. And the greatest threat to any country in the practice of democracy is that it breeds tyranny. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like what James Madison was talking about, that the government is helpless against the mischiefs of factions. So let's say you get a certain faction or political party, and they want to make it their mission in life to enact laws to do all sorts of reprehensible things that are not fair. They don't respect the rights of all the people. They just, they want to enact bad laws. They get together, they have a majority, and then they do it. They just go ahead and do it. That's what democracy does. Democracy is where a bunch of people vote, and whether it's good or bad, you have laws based upon what the majority of the people want, and not necessarily that which is fair or just or honest. Laws that do not respect the rights of the individuals, for instance, is a very core concept. It's a very core concept in the United States, that the United States recognizes not only the freedoms, but the rights that the individuals have. It recognizes the rights of the individual. So that's the difference between, in my own explanation, between a republic and a democracy. A democracy breeds tyranny. It is subject to the whims of the population. It's like some people choose their sport teams that way. This week they like that sports team, and then that week they like a different sports team. The laws of the land, especially for a country like the United States of America, in order to have that country weather the storms of multiple political parties and multiple political influences over the course of hundreds and hundreds of years, you have to have a system of government set up in such a way that it is stable, and it is stable enough to weather all of these storms. With democracy, you don't have that. You just make it up as you go, essentially, is what democracy is, So why do people attribute democracy to the United States of America when the United States of America is a republic? It is a constitutional republic. That's a great question. So there is the process of voting. So the very act of voting, where people want to cast a vote, there's times where the people need to elect representatives. You have a representative government, and you want to elect people to be your representatives in Congress, for instance. Or you want to elect someone to be your local mayor or your local sheriff or your state representatives, the governor, for instance, of your particular state. There are elections. An election is the casting of a vote and everything. So there are some things that resemble the democracy in the sense that we have voting, but that isn't the definition in its entirety of democracy. Just because we have the ability to cast a vote doesn't make the United States a democracy. These elected representatives, in order to take office, they are required by law to swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It doesn't matter if they're a Supreme Court justice or a president of the United States or even law enforcement officers at any different level. The only way that this constitutional republic works is if everybody adheres to the Constitution. Remember I said the government and the people both have to obey the Constitution, which is the law. They have to obey the law. That's why everybody, all the way down from the president to the governors to the judges to even the security guard at the mall, is supposed to be, if they have any authority whatsoever, all of the authority, and that goes for all of you too that work in a 3-letter alphabet soup agency in the Washington, D.C. area. This goes for you too. Everybody has to obey the Constitution. They have to obey the law of the land. You cannot deviate from the Constitution. That's the way the whole thing works. You have to obey the law, whether you're in the government, you're a private citizen, the government must obey the Constitution. That's how everything works. It's when that doesn't happen, that's when you have problems. So I mentioned some of these 3-letter agencies. So there's a lot of things that are and perhaps have been going on in the rest of the world in the name of the United States, where the United States and certain 3-letter government agencies, for instance, will then go to other countries and they will take some kind of an action to knock out the people who are in charge of that other country, and then they do that in the name of democracy so that they can instill democracy in that country because that's good and all wholesome and all that kind of stuff. No, it's not. Because by instilling democracy in other countries, all you're doing is really instilling tyranny. There's just different people in charge, and it's a different kind of a tyranny that was perhaps there before, but it's still tyranny. If you're scoffing at that statement, let me ask you this. If democracy is such a good thing, why haven't any of the countries where the United States has knocked out the guy who's in charge and set up a new government or something there so they can have democracy and they can have elections and you dip your finger in the ink and the whole bit, how come every time they go to set up a new country there, they don't ever include a Second Amendment in there in the other country? The ability for the people to have a right to keep and bear arms. Because that's what deters tyranny. You may disagree with that, but it really works. There's an old saying that I like, fear the government that fears your guns. So, because that's for real. I say that any time that the United States and any of these 3-letter alphabet soup agencies go to another country and knock out the other country and then portray that, well, we're doing it in the name of democracy and therefore it's wholesome and it's good, I say, no, I disagree. I think all you're doing is just instilling another form of tyranny, unless you're at the very least, going to set up a constitution like that's in the United States, where the people have a Bill of Rights. They have a right to free speech, right to freely assemble. They have a right to all that. Now, maybe other countries don't want to live that way. Maybe other countries, they prefer to have a dictator, or what we would call a dictator, or, something to, where just one guy's in charge and it doesn't matter what his opinion is, whether he's right or wrong, what he says goes. in the United States, historically, we have rejected the idea of a king or a single person who whatever he says is the way it is, kind of a thing. And then the next guy who's in charge, now everything. You don't have stability when you have that kind of a government that's run either by a religious individual who's attempting to coerce or force everybody to live according to the precepts of a particular religion. Freedom is about, having the government not telling you what to do and how to do it on a regular basis. A constitutional republic like the United States, it recognizes freedom, and the goal is to have less government, less telling the people what to do, because the more laws you have and the more the government tells people what to do and how to live, and the more that the government regulates businesses and tells them what to do and how to do it and all that kind of stuff, as long as those rules are done with respect to the rights of the individuals living in the country, regulation is okay. I'm not talking about zero regulations. I'm talking about where you recognize the rights of the people to live their lives. They want to buy the products that they want to buy. They don't want the government to tell them what they have to buy. Things like that. But we'll have other videos in the future that talk about things like this. For now, I'm trying to explain to you the difference between democracy and a republic. The republic is, the constitutional republic is the only way that the world has ever seen to this date where you can have a truly free country and have the rights of the people respected and to oppose tyranny. So whenever you hear people talking about democracy all the time, there's a certain political party, which I don't have to spell it out for you. You already know that the Democrats, that's their platform. The Democratic Party of the United States, that's their platform, is democracy. Every time they get on the news in front of a TV camera, they like to throw that word democracy, United States, democracy, democracy. That's them trying to brainwash you into thinking that the United States is a democracy. It is not a democracy. They know good and well that if you tell somebody something long enough over and over and over again, you're going to believe it whether it's true or not. So the United States is a constitutional republic. It's not designed to have different political parties. It's designed to have a constitution where everybody obeys the law. That law is fair and just for everybody. All of mankind is created equal, and everybody has equal rights. And it's been a challenge in the United States to get everyone to practice and participate that. Nevertheless, the concept is still true. I think we're still struggling in many respects to practice what we preach, so to speak, beginning with the Declaration of Independence, and then later the Constitution, when that came around, and the Bill of Rights and all that. We're still struggling to practice these things, but they're good laws. We just have to practice it. Democracy? No. This is not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic, this United States of America, and that's why democracy is a vile and contemptible form of government, the worst that there is, according to Thomas Paine. So let's think more clearly on democracy, what a democracy really is, and rethink some of the decisions that we make in our life. Let's stop instilling democracy in other countries, because it's not going to do them any good. Democracy doesn't do us any good in this country. Let's get to where we all obey the law of the land. The government obeys the Constitution. The people obey the Constitution. The rights of the individuals who live in the country are respected, and that's the best way to do it. So thank you for watching. I'm Wheelgun Dan. Visit wheelgundan.com for all my latest activities and offerings. Thank you for being here with me today. Enjoy your day. Howdy, I'm Wheelgun Dan. Welcome to my collection of videos. In this collection of videos, I'm going to talk about America, guns, and freedom. So welcome. Feel free to peruse the collection of videos. Should be a thing around here someplace to click like, subscribe, notifications. So, enjoy yourself. What kind of bug is that over there? Okay, feel free to peruse the video collection anytime now.